Hey everyone, I am Double Hole with an H. Welcome back to my channel, Squats and Skyscrapers, where we're getting fit while climbing that corporate ladder. So I unpacked a number of issues in my previous episode and I will unpack them as the series continues. Today, however, we are tackling body types. So there are three primary body types and that will ultimately influence how you diet as well as what you eat. We have ectomorphs, we have mesomorphs, and we have endomorphs. I'll repeat those again. Ectomorphs, mesomorphs, endomorphs. So at the start we have the ectomorphs. These guys are known to be thin and dangly, and they have metabolisms that are absolutely insane and therefore can eat whatever they want. The downside of being an ectomorph though is that they struggle and really struggle to build muscle. But it's not impossible to build muscle. You'll hear some ectomorphs saying that no, it's impossible, my muscles will never grow, I've been doing this for years. The downside is they have to eat so much food just to gain some muscle, and they also have to tailor how they train. So let's get into what they have to eat. The average person who's trying to do a normal bodybuilding contest will probably have about 6 meals a day and about between 80 to 120 grams of protein in their main meals. So endomorphs have to eat a lot more food. We're not talking about I'll order 2 McDonald's while you eat 1. We're not talking about I'll finish an extra tub of ice cream while you do that. Look, their bodies can get away with it and their metabolism will burn it, but they're not going to build muscle on ice cream. These guys literally need to eat so much more chicken, so much more eggs, so much more beef. They need to eat pure protein sources in order to build muscle. And bear in mind, guys, building muscle does not happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 6 months. You might see a little bit of muscle increase in 6 months, but to give yourself a fair chance, I'd probably say give yourself a year. So take your before picture today and compare it to your after picture in a year's time. And that will help you see how much muscle you have built in that point in time. When coming to training, ectomorphs also tend to get more tired easily when doing weights. Bear in mind, if they're trying to build muscle, they honestly don't need to do the cardio. They can skip the cardio, but they can take longer breaks in between sets when they are building weights. So if we are doing perhaps 6 sets of leg extensions, as a mesomorph, I'm a mesomorph, I can probably do with like a 30 second to a 1 minute rest in between. But you might find that the ectomorph is going to need a lot more time to recover. So ectomorphs need to bear that in mind. They probably need to do heavier sets if they can, if their bodies can allow, and they need to rest a little bit more in between those sets in order to generate the strength, generate the power, generate that energy to get them through the moves. But they definitely can build muscle. They can be quality bodybuilders. They just need to follow a slightly different approach in order to get their muscle matured and looking fresh and looking proper. And then we have the second group, the mesomorphs. These guys generally have the best of both. So they can build muscle fairly well, and they can also gain fat where they need to. They can pretty much get away with like minimal exercise and still look quite decent. I'm a mesomorph myself, although I am a little bit of a cross. So we build muscle generally quickly, and people will start thinking that we've been in gym for so long. Yet when they see us on the off season and we've picked up some weight, they're like, oh boy, what happened to you? You know, we can gain fat and we can gain muscle. So we generally don't need as much cardio as the endomorphs do. And we don't have to lift as heavy either, although lifting heavier will probably do us a bit more favors, and then we'll get results quicker. So it is always an experiment, but the mesomorphs can handle cardio and weights generally equally well. In terms of food, generally they can also eat all three food groups in decent proportions. They don't have to eat that much more protein than the others. They don't need to eat that much more carbs, etc. They literally can follow that old school macronutrients meal in terms of your carbs, in terms of your fats, in terms of your proteins. And perhaps if they're looking to shed a little bit more fat, then they can increase their protein so that they can build more muscle. But this group tends to have the best of both worlds. We can gain fat easily and we can gain muscle just as easily. And we don't need as much time in the gym either. We don't need to be slogging it out for hours upon hours upon hours in the gym. Generally, 45 minutes, do what you need to do, go in there hard, get out, and you've done what you can do for the day, and you'll be fine with that. So mesomorphs must enjoy this advantage. It really is an advantage over the other groups. You can build muscle quite well. We can hold that muscle for longer. It doesn't disappear as quickly. And it doesn't take as much effort as the others to build. However, the effort will still be there to maintain. All three of these groups, whether it's ectomorphs, whether it's mesomorphs, whether it's endomorphs, the hard work is in maintaining your body type. Building is not too much of an issue. Maintenance, which means consistency, that is where the hard work comes in. That is where everyone needs to be disciplined, and you can generally maintain your body from January to December without any much or too much of a fuss. It is doable, and I definitely think people should be a little bit more mindful about it, not put too much pressure on themselves to have a camera ready body from January to December. It might change slightly, 2 or 3 kilograms here and there, but once you've achieved that goal, maintenance is possible and it should be fun. Then we move on to the final group. These are the endomorphs. Endomorphs tend to be bullied a lot more than the others. They get called stocky, chunky, fat, plump. They generally, they can carry quite a bit of fat on them, but they can also build muscle really, really well. However, this is the group that needs to watch it the most out of the other three groups, because if they build too much, they can become a little bit stocky, and it might not necessarily be the beach bod that you want. However, in terms of something like powerlifting, these guys are amazing at it. They do so well. They've got so much strength, they've got power. Oh no, endomorphs generally have an advantage when it comes to certain sports. And they mustn't just think it's doom and gloom. I've got so much muscle, I don't know what to do with it. It can work to your advantage, so use it. In terms of getting a little bit of a leaner look, they tend to have to watch their diet and the way that they train. So in terms of the diet, they might want to go easy on the carbs and have a little bit more water than the others. In terms of sugar, they've got to be very, very strict about that, because they can pick up weight so easily. When it comes to training, this group, although they don't have the energy for it, but it is advisable that they do a little bit more cardio than the rest of everyone else. They need it, otherwise their muscles start to look a little bit chalky and not lean and really toned, and in terms of symmetry. So they do need to watch it. It's a very thin line for them, and they need to guard it a little bit more. So they do need to do that extra bit of cardio, but they can build muscle generally quickly. So those are the endomorphs. It can be frustrating for them in terms of the way that they gain weight and how they want to try and lose it. However, they are able to hold on to that muscle a little bit longer. You also find that their metabolisms are slower, so the amount of time it takes for them to lose the weight takes so much longer, but they must just bear with it. It's gonna come down. You guys can make amazing bodybuilders as well, because you've just got that size and the muscle fullness, and it looks amazing. You just need to pay attention to the diet and the way in which you train. You can also benefit from plyometric exercises as well, and as well as some high intensity interval training that can do quite well for you in terms, instead of just like slogging it out miles and miles on the road or on that treadmill. You could do a little bit more power exercises, and that can help shed the fat quicker. So think about your box jumps, think about your sprint intervals on the skill mill, think about your sprint intervals on the watt bike, for example. Those work quite well, and they shed the fat quite well as well. So they can look at things like that. In essence, guys, those are the 3 body types that we have. We've got the ectomorph, the mesomorph, and the endomorph. Pay attention to where you fall in between these categories and tailor your diet and your training accordingly. I must also state that you can be between the body types. So I tend to lean more towards I have elements of an ectomorph as well as elements of a mesomorph. I've got the thin joints that the ectomorphs have, but I've got the bulk of a mesomorph. So you can be in between 2 body types, but there will always be one that overpowers the other. So bear that in mind and tailor that to your training approach in terms of the number of sets that you're doing, in terms of the amount of cardio you're doing, in terms of the amount of carbs that you're consuming, in terms of the amount of protein you're consuming. So pay attention to all of that, and until you find the right weight plan that works for you. And most importantly, give yourself time. This thing takes time. My muscles didn't develop overnight. They could disappear, unfortunately, like in a month, but it took years and years and years of training to get to this physique. Give yourself time, be patient, love your body, and most of all, enjoy your training. That's all for today, guys.